What's up, Mark? How are you?
I am good. Thank
Good.
you. Cannot complain.
It never has helped, has it?
I'm sorry?
Has it ever helped when you complain?
What complaint? Oh, no, no one listens
Yeah.
anyway.
No one listens anyway. It's what my grandfather always told me too. Man, I jump on your website, man, and like just earlier today and before when I was checking you out, and just this quote made me before I even knew anything, right? This is what I loved. My situation circumstances don't define my life. What defines my life is the meaning I've chosen to attach to what happened to me and to the positive lessons I've learned along the way.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. It's all about being a victor, not a victim.
Hey, right?
Yep, 100%.
And your story has so much about how you could be a victim.
Right. And, unfortunately, some people in similar situations go down that route. But it just, for me, it wasn't an option. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm sure we're going to go into the story in a little bit, but what happened to me when I was 24. I don't plan on dying until I'm at least 115. So I didn't want to live something like that.
Hold on. Stop. How did you come up with 115?
Well, 100 is like a good figure, but everyone's living to 100 now. So I need to push the envelope a little and just be the first guy to hit 115.
All right. So you want to be the first guy to hit 115.
Right. But that was like 90 plus years of potentially being a victim, which I didn't really find exciting. So early on in this journey, I decided that that's not what we're going to do. We're going to be the victor, not the victim.
This is opposite of kind of the culture. Where are you right now? Where are you located?
In the UK.
In the UK. I don't know what the UK is like, but America is all about the victim.
Yeah, we got a bit of that too.
Okay. America for sure is like this. And I don't care which side of the aisle you fall on, in the political landscape, everyone's playing the victim.
Right.
Oh, you're making me wear a mask. Oh, you're not wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, on something so silly, right? Like, everyone's the victim. So where's your stance with the victim mentality that we have going on?
Do you know what? It's something that I really can't stand. And so I come from a military background, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know so much now, but back in the day when I was serving, things were handled a certain way, right? Rightly or wrongly, whatever, that there were ways that things were handled. If you messed up, things got sorted out and then you took responsibility. But, you look around nowadays and, I don't know if this is going to be a popular or an unpopular opinion, but you see maybe like with these riots that have been going on the last 12 months, someone will get all up in a police officer's face. They will spit. They will try to assault them. And then when they end up on their ass, all of a sudden they become a victim. And I'm like, well, you kind of caused that scenario, but then you didn't like the outcome of it. So now you want to complain about it. Do you know what I mean? It's like poking a lion and expecting not to be bitten. It's a bit crazy to me.
Because everyone goes like with the riots thing, right? Like, I don't agree with rioting ever. I'm fine with protesting. Like, you can protest all you want, but if you do that, if you hit a cop, you're gonna get fucked up,
right?
And what was it for me? The one that and look, I'm African American, so and I know exactly what it's like to be in a car and getting pulled over for nothing. It happens to my dad still. It's not cool. I don't believe that it's being handled skillfully, for many reasons, race included in them. Race included in that. But when we try to connect all of the instances, for example, the other day, I don't know if you pay attention to the American news too much, but like, you know, this dude got shot and he was like wielding a knife, like he was coming at the cops with a knife.
Okay,
dude, you're gonna get fucking shot,
right?
like you're gonna get. And look, I feel really bad that he was mentally handicapped. You know, like he was not in the right state of mind. But you're gonna get shot. Right, like, it's just what's going to happen. Like, that is not the same as like what happened with George Floyd. They cannot be in the two. They're not in the same bucket, right? Like George Floyd got kneeled on for 9 minutes when he was controlled and killed, running at a cop with a knife. You know,
it must be. You know what? It must be really difficult. I know nothing about law enforcement, especially in the States, but you've got a split second to make decisions about your life, civilians' lives, and you know, I don't know the certain circumstances in that situation, but whether the police officers knew the man was mentally unstable or had issues or whatever it was. If they didn't, all you see is a man running at you with a knife, and you got to make a decision quick. You know, that's very different to the whole victim-victor thing,
right?
But you got to make decisions quick, and I don't know the way they're trained over there. You can just shoot the guy in a kneecap, or you have to shoot him in the chest. Okay, but yeah, you've got to make sometimes a number of decisions in a couple of seconds.
For sure,
you know, and
I feel like like when we get to the victimhood thing, I feel like cops play the victim too, in the sense of, look, man, you are in law enforcement. You can't be fat and out of shape. It shouldn't be a thing.
Right.
Like, so like the reason, like, so you're like, I'm scared. Well, you're scared because you don't know how to fucking do anything. You're scared because you don't know, you are untrained, which is partially the system's fault, but partially your fault. If you can't physically defend yourself, if you don't know how to, and your only decision-making thing is to pull your gun out and shoot, right? You know, this is a problem, right? This is a problem, because once, and I won't even discredit the fact that people might be scared, right? You might genuinely be scared, but the reason you're scared is because you don't actually know how to defend yourself. You have no confidence with your words. Also, you escalate, maybe not in the knife situation, right? But you escalate things rather than de-escalate things. Because again, if you know you have the big stick over here with the gun and the other person doesn't, you know? So if you actually knew how to defend yourself, like, look, you were in the Royal Marines, you know how to defend yourself. You're not going out trying to big dick everyone. Right. You do everything you can to not fight, because you know the risk of it, right? The risk of it to you too. So,
and I spent 6 years as I think we call him the same thing, a bouncer, nightclub bouncer.
Yeah.
So all I did every weekend was de-escalate fights and calm situations down and talk drunk people down from trying to swing punches at me, and you know,
me too.
and you get very skilled at it. You get very skilled at it
because it's important. Because you can't fight every weekend, right? I don't want to fight every weekend. I don't want to fight every night. No, it's risky. It's risky to me. And like, you could fight and I could fight. Like, but you know, odds. You know, Buster Douglas knocked out Mike Tyson, bro. that was 40-1 odds. My odds aren't that good. My odds are worse than that. You know.
Yeah, it's been a crazy 12+ months, I think, across the world lately. Yeah. And I'm sure there are many people like me, like probably yourself, that are just glad we're starting to see the back of this now. You know, and hopefully get back to normality. And hopefully this period has taught people a lot of lessons about humanity and looking after each other. I know it doesn't seem that way. I mean, there's a lot to be said for the mainstream media, the things they choose to show you and they choose not to show you. You know what I mean? To just make everyone angry at each other and divide each other. And, you know, I wish more people understood that and turn that TV
Mom,
off.
it's porn. Yeah, I'm like, Mom, you watch porn. Like all you do is
Yeah.
watch porn all day. It's a different kind of porn. It's awful for you.
We don't have it in our house. We don't
Yeah.
ever have it on in the house, the news. I realized a couple of years ago, way before this pandemic, that it was affecting the way I attacked my days. You know, you're getting up in the morning, you're brushing your teeth, and you're listening to it subconsciously in the background. And then you hop in the car and it's on the radio, and you know, some dude cuts you up on the way to work, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning and you're raging, angry. Do you know what I mean? It's 8 in the morning. You know, and when I
Nothing
kind
really
of
happens.
no, and that sets you up for the day just to be angry and snappy with everyone. So, you know, I realized that a good few years ago and ended up watching, I think, Spider-Man in the morning with my kids. Do you know what I mean? So I went out of the house thinking that I was a superhero, and my imagination was on fire, and I'd go out and be happy, you know?
How'd you figure this out? You know, because it's a trap that most people don't get out of, right? Like these companies, these news channels, they make millions and billions of dollars on you and me, right? And people just like us, but somehow you were able to get out. How did you get out of that cycle?
Well, I'm a big fan of personal development, so I read a lot of books about that area, you know, developing and improving myself in all areas of my life, and routines and habits was a big part of what I was reading at the time. And I already knew it to a degree anyway. And I just made a couple of tweaks to my morning routine, my evening routine, which helped me start my day and end my day better. And when you make those tweaks, you know, you take out the negative and you replace it with the positive, you start to realize actually how destructive the negatives were, whether you were conscious of them or not, how bad they were affecting your days, your weeks, your months, and your years. And then when you remove them and replace them with something more empowering and positive, how much of a positive effect that has on your life and holistically, you know, your health, your mental health, how you are as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as an employee. You know, it just makes you better all around. And you know what? It's a thing that I've always been passionate about it, but during, I think, lockdown, I've become a little bit more passionate about it. And I really wish more people understood that when it comes to your life, you have to take control of it and map it out, right? Like, if you want to go from East Coast America, no, that's easy because you're just driving a straight line effectively. But you want to go from one part of America to another, one part of the UK to another, right? You just jump in your car and drive. You're probably not going to get there. But if you get a map and you map out waypoints and you consciously know where you're going, how long it's going to take you to get there, what you've got to do to get there, then you're in control to a much greater extent. And it's the same with your life. You know, I think a lot of people just get up and go on autopilot and go to the job that they hate with the boss that they hate to earn some money, to, you know, when you're younger, party on the weekends and you get stuck in this trap, then you get pissed off because you're in a trap and you know you're in a trap and you want to do something else and you want to experience life and travel and meet people, but you can't because now you got a mortgage and all this stuff comes along. And not many people take the time to sit down and go, all right, this is what I want to do. This is when I want to do it by, and kind of design their lives. They just kind of, I guess, go with the flow to an extent, you know, and I'm a big fan of designing it and taking yourself where you want to go.
Men lead lives of quiet desperation. And I think it comes down to a lot of what you just said, right? You get stuck behind mortgages and bills, you know, when you're younger, you know, partying. And then, you know, you start trying to keep up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah.
You know, you start to keep up with the Joneses. I was actually just talking about this, right? Like, it's one, and I think sometimes people are like, oh, what, I can't have a nice car or a nice house. No, you can totally have those things, right? Like, that's fine, but just be aware of what you're doing, you know, be aware of why you want those things, you know, and two, can you really afford those things? Right. Can you really, like, where you are right now, can you afford those things? Like, in a way that, like, from my perspective, if you lost your job for a couple months, it wouldn't even fuck with you. Right.
Yeah. And that's a whole other part of the personal development thing is, you know, looking after your finances, financial education, developing multiple streams of income. Because if you do lose your job and that's the only source of income you have, you're dead in the water, especially if you have family and you have a mortgage and car payments and all that kind of stuff. I think, so my eldest daughter is 16, and I'm always kind of looking, it's difficult, right? Because you got to let them make their mistakes and find their own way and do their own thing. But I'm always trying to drop little pearls of wisdom. And I think it was a Jay-Z meme I saw on Instagram the other day when it comes to money. And it says, if you can't buy it twice, you can't afford it. Right? So if you haven't got enough money in your bank to go and buy that car twice, don't buy it. You can't afford it.
Don't buy it.
And I thought that was pretty cool. I've never seen that before. And I thought that's actually true. If you got to spend all the money you've got saved on a deposit and then stretch yourself every month for the payments, don't get it. You can't afford it.
You can't afford it. And then your life is fucked. Right?
For a long time.
And then your life is fucked. You start having to do things. And you have to do things because you've got these bills or you've got this whatever or whatever it may be. And once you have to do something, like
I know
I never want to have to do. I have to eat. I have to sleep. Right. I have to take a shit. Things like that. But that's like my have tos. I get to do a lot of things. I get to do a ton of shit.
Yeah.
So
and
go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's funny the way the world is now when it comes to material possessions and stuff. And I think it's over a number of years, like what we were saying just now with the media, with just advertising, billboards, TV, radio. Everyone's developed this mindset of I need a new car. I need this handbag. I need these trainers. When really, when you strip it back, all we need is human beings. You go back even just like the Second World War, when people were really hard up and they're rationing and there's like 16 people living in one house. That's extreme. But all you really need is a house that's comfortable enough to live in, a car that drives, and some food in the fridge, clothes on your back. That's it. And you can be happy because you can go off kayaking, paddleboarding, rock climbing, cycling, whatever you want to do, and actually enjoy yourself instead of stressing yourself out, working overtime and all that other stuff to try and make ends meet. I think I'm getting old because I never used to talk like this.
No, I know. And I was looking at it the other day. Something came across my I don't know where I saw it too. The two richest dudes in the world that we know of anyway, like they're up there top 10. Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, they're getting fucking divorced. So they have all the money in the world. Right. So the money obviously isn't the answer. Right? Money doesn't get it done here. So and it's you need a certain amount, like you said, clothes, food, house, car.
Right.
I mean, you're good. I'll get back to you a little here as we move through this. Look, it's much easier for me to say all these things than possibly for you and your experience. You had a devastating injury and the whole victim mentality. I mean, if you would have landed on victim, there wouldn't be many people going, yeah, man, how does Mark see the world this way? Why is he being such a victim? So I want to hear your story, from your perspective.
Okay. So
where do you start? Yeah. Start with childhood. Okay. Start as a young child. What was your childhood like?
So I was born in the 80s and I grew up in the 90s. I was born in 1983, I'm 87. I grew up in the 90s and was a big action movie junkie. You had those big VHS cassettes. You had Arnie, Stallone, Seagal, Bruce Willis, all those guys. And I grew up just fascinated with them. I used to watch these.
I got a question real fast.
Okay.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. All right. 100%. We were going to be done. If you said no, I'd have to stop and be like,
it is 100% a Christmas movie.
All right, go ahead.
But I grew up watching these guys, and when you're a kid and your imagination runs wild, I just wanted to be like them when I got older. I wanted to be the big, muscly, hard-ass hero, but the gentleman. you know, the guy that was always out taking out the bad guys, looking after the good guys, and being polite to people, you know, helping the old lady cross the road. I just grew up and I loved that. And, you know, my biggest, I don't want to call it a man crush, but who I used to watch the most was Jean-Claude Van Damme. And it really got me into martial arts from a young age. I used to do the splits across the chairs. I used to go into the class 30 minutes early when the people were boxing, and I'd practice that jumping, spinning kick he does in kickboxer and all these things. I used to practice them all the time. And it drove me down a certain path. You know, it kind of developed my mindset of what I thought a man should be. You know, you got to be big, tough. You got to be able to fight, look after yourself, look after your family, but be polite, be a gentleman, and always do the right thing. And when I was going through school, you know, I grew up fine. I had no hardships. You know, like I said, it was the 90s. We're running around building dens, you know, scraping our knees, getting into a bit of trouble, just being cheeky, you know, that kind of stuff, not breaking the law or anything like that.
We had the same childhood.
It was fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of fun. You're going out until the street lights came on. That's when you knew you had to be home, or you heard your parents screaming your name from the doorstep, and you could hear it like 15 streets away.
My wife gets so mad at me when I scream out into the yard, into the neighborhood. I'm like, get out, you know? I'm like, what's the matter? What?
Just text kids now, don't you?
Yeah.
But so all my friends that I grew up with and I went to school with were like 3 years older than me, 2 or 3 years older. So by the time I was coming to the end of school, they had already left, and a bunch of them had joined the army. And some of them were based in the UK, some were based out in Germany, in the tank regiment. And they would come home on their leave periods, and they'd have money in the bank. They'd have new cars on finance, like we just talked about, that you shouldn't do. They were going out, getting all their money, and still living at home with their parents because they were on leave. They didn't have their own properties now at the time.
You can finance a car if you could buy it out. If you could buy it out twice, you can finance it, right? Like, money's super cheap. Business, yeah, you know, I'm okay with it. You know,
there's ways.
You could.
There's ways.
But go ahead.
But so these guys would come home, and you know, they'd be going out on the weekends having a good time, and they, you know, throw a couple quid my way so I could go out and have fun with them. And they were always talking about the cool stuff they did. You know, we'd been out on the ranges shooting, and we did these fitness tests and all this kind of stuff. And it pushed me down that path of wanting to join the military. So as I was coming to the end of school, I think you call it high school, we call it primary school.
Mm-hmm.
That's about 15 and a half. I went down to the career center. I spoke to the recruiting guy in the army, and I got the paperwork to join the British Army. Because of my age, I couldn't do that without my parents' permission. So I went home, showed them the paperwork, asked them to sign it. And then they told me that I had an uncle who was in the Royal Marines. Now, I didn't know what the Royal Marines were. I just thought, growing up watching all those army movies, that if you want to be a soldier and you want to do that cool stuff, you just join the army, don't you? That's just what you do. I thought people in the Navy go on boats, in the Air Force, they fly planes. In the army, you put a knife in your teeth, a gun on your back, and, you know, you go out and take out bad guys. So they told me about my uncle in the Royal Marines, and he only lives 20 miles away from me. So on a Saturday, we jumped in the car, went up to see him, and he had joined the Marines as a Marine, which is private. Well, it's our equivalent of a private, so bottom of the ladder. And he'd left 22 years later as a captain. So he worked his way up through the ranks and commissioned as an officer. And he told me all about these group of men called the Royal Marines. And he told me why it was different to the army, what you could expect to do in there, what a career was like, the kind of experiences that you could have over.
Is the Royal Marines like our Navy SEALs?
Yes. That's a lot of people have a misconception that we're the same as the US Marines, but we're not. And don't have a massive amount of knowledge, but the closest I think I can equate it to is the SEALs. We're naval infantry, like they are.
You have to you have to go through, like, for them, they go through this thing called buds, right? Where it's a week of hell, you know, a week of hell, and you know, everyone quits. It's got like a 90% dropout rate, 10% make it. I'm assuming that's what the Royal Marines is.
So our training is 32 weeks long, But it culminates at you've obviously got your basic military training, fieldcraft, and everything, and then the last bit is, I guess, similar to Buds, and it's called the Commando Phase, where you've got these 4 tests to do, physical tests. So one's like a 30-foot high rope course with all your kit on, and an assault course. One's 2 miles of underwater tunnels with a 4-mile run shooting test. One's like a 9-mile. I don't know what you guys call them, like just a run with all your kit on. And then there's a 30-mile. There's a big 30-mile one at the end of a Dartmoor. So yeah, very similar to that. But he told me all about life in the Royal Marines. So I went back to the career centre that next week, and I spoke to the Royal Marines recruiter. And he put this VHS cassette in. It was when the TVs were just coming out, where they had the combined VCRs in them.
Okay.
Quite new tech back then. And I watched this video, and I'm like, shit. Like, these guys were jumping out of planes. They were on speedboats assaulting beaches. They had these big, heavy packs on their back. They're in the Arctic, the jungle, the desert, the woodland. They were doing everything. And I was like, that's what I want to do. These guys can do anything. Like, in any climate, any part of the world, they can insert by air, sea, land, whatever you want. These guys are like the ultimate. So I got the paperwork for that, got it signed, applied, went back to school, finished my exams, and then got invited for what's called a potential Royal Marines course, which is a 3-day beat up where you just get your ass whipped like non-stop for 3 days to see who quits, to see who doesn't make the grade. It's like an opportunity for you to see if you've made the right decision, and the trained Royal Marines to see if you're ready to take on that 32 weeks of training.
Okay, so that's the Navy SEAL. That's Buds, right? You go through Buds, and then you get same.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I passed that first time. Went back home. Was given a training program, like a progressively intense program, and then February 2001 started my Royal Marines training. I was 17 years old when I started. There were 64 of us on day one. And out of those 64 men, when we had finished and earned our Green Berets, there were 16 of us that had started on day one and got through in one hit to the end without any 25%. Injuries. All right, the drop-off rate's horrendous. People quit, people get injured, people don't make the grade and they get kicked out. Same as any branch of the military, I guess. And yeah, 16 out of 64 by the end of it.
Yeah, 25%.
Yeah. Now, I joined February 2001, and I was given my Green Beret in October 2001. So like 4 weeks before was 9/11. So I remember we had done all the hard part of training. We had passed all the tests we needed to, and we were just doing the bit where you do the marching, right? Where the families come and you do the ceremonial side of things. And we were in the cafe just eating. I think we just throwing some burgers down our face or whatever before we went back and started marching again. And then we all saw it on the news.
Because it wasn't morning for you. Yeah, it was morning for us. It was afternoon for you.
Right. So I'm 18 years old at this point, right? And I'm in the mindset of growing up watching all these movies, the Rambos. I'm in the mindset of this is what I am now. I've just done all this training, longest, hardest regular forces training in the world. Did it in one hit. Got my Green Beret at 18 years old. I am the dog's bollocks. And then I see this. And a bit of reality kicks in. And I'm like, okay, you've just done all this training. Now you've got to go and do the job. And, like any branch of the military, I guess across the world, some people can go 20 years in their career and never deploy anywhere just because the timing's wrong and there's nothing happening or whatever circumstances are. And then here we were, still a couple of weeks away from actually finishing, knowing that as soon as we do, we're going and we got to do this job. But when you're young, you're 18 years old, you're surrounded by blokes and testosterone and adrenaline, and you're arrogant and you're cocky. You're like, yeah, let's go, let's do this, and you're excited for it, genuinely, because you don't know what the reality of it is.
And your whole life has been about this. Like everything leading up to it has been trying to get to this point, to be
Right.
fucking Rambo and
Right.
and whoever else on, you know, as a kid, and then you set your life goal on that, or your life path on that. Now it's like laid in front of you, like, oh man, this fucking worked out. This is what I want.
Right. Yeah. And then you have that little moment of be careful what you wish for. Do you know what I mean? You wanted this and you talked about this and now you got it. So now you got to see if you can actually do it. Because like anything, any training you go through, you know, you can squeak through one test. You can maybe slip through the net here and there, you know, and there's a little bit of luck involved. There's no luck. Well, there is, but when you go to combat, you got to be able to actually do the job. So, you know, a couple of weeks later, what we call passed out of training. We went to our commando units, and then we were trained instantly to go to Afghanistan in 2002 on something called Operation Jacana. For some reason, I don't know what it was. I think it became more of like a reconnaissance special forces thing from our end, but a lot of us, it was scaled back. So a lot of us didn't go. So we were all a little bit annoyed because we're like, well, we've trained for this. We've done the pre-deployment training for this. We're ready to go. And now we're not going. So everyone just sat around in the UK, you know, a bit steaming. And then 2003 came and Iraq came on our radar. So when I was 19, I deployed to Kuwait, spent like a month, maybe month and a half in Kuwait, and then was involved in that initial push over the Kuwait Iraqi border in 2003 to go and to do that, which, you know, at 19 years old, again, you kind of, it's a different world. You know, you grow up very fast. You know, you see things that you don't. I mean, I really try hard not to do this, but I look around at 19-year-old kids now, and you know, like that old man that goes, "When I was 19," I try not to be that guy, but I just look and I'm like, "What are 19-year-olds doing now?" You know, me and my friends were running around a war zone, dodging bullets when we were 19. But the whole thing was a little bit slow for me. You know, I had this preconceived notion of what going to war was going to be like. And it was nothing like that for me. I didn't fire a single round from my weapon. I rarely came into contact with the enemy. And when I did, it was from a distance. So there was no need to panic or worry or get ready or anything. And I came back a little bit flat, you know, thinking, is that it? I did all this training. I've been told for months and months and months that I'm going to be this badass when I pass out and, you know, be able to do this, that, and the other. And I've been to war and I didn't do any of it. I got a really good suntan, saved up a bunch of money, and that was kind of it. So I came back and I was like, okay, it was, for me, it was quite good in the fact that in the first 3 or 4 years of my career, I had done a fair bit already. You know, I'd already earned my beret, did it first time, gone to war. And like I said, that sometimes you can go 20 years and not deploy at all. And I'd done it in the less than 5. So I felt good about that. But then I came back and I'm like, what do I do now? Do we just wait for the next operation? What do I do in between? You know, so we did a bit. We went to, like I said earlier, you know, you got to learn to train and fight in the Arctic, the jungle, and all this lot. So we went out to Norway a couple of times and we got trained how to survive and fight in the Arctic. I never made it out to the jungle. Obviously, UK, we did it in the woodland a lot. And then I left in 2006. My daughter was born. Kezia was born in 2005. So I decided to leave. And I thought, you know, I've done a fair bit in these first 5 years. 5 years is the minimum you have to serve. I can leave at, I think I was 22 years old. I can leave at a young age with my head held high and still be very young and ready to start a new career. So that's what I did. I left early 2006, had separated actually from my daughter's mother at that point. So things weren't going great for me in my life. And I retrained as a bodyguard. I flew out to South Africa and I spent 6 weeks out there training as a bodyguard. Came back home thinking I was going to be living like Kevin Costner in the Bodyguard movie. And that didn't pan out either. No, I mean, it was strange because there was a lot of work out there, but for some reason I couldn't get my foot in the door. I don't know if it was my age, my lack of contacts, that I was fresh out the box. I don't know what it was, but I just couldn't get
And this
the
was in
work.
South Africa the whole time?
No, I did 6 weeks out there and came back to the UK.
Get back to the okay, got it.
Right. So at this point in my life, having separated from my daughter's mum, I'd left the Marines. I trained as a bodyguard. I was trying to get work. I took a job as a bouncer, a nightclub doorman, to earn some money while I was waiting for the bodyguard and stuff to pick up. Now, in the UK, at this time, this is 2006, they were just starting to regulate the nightclub security, well, the whole security industry. So they had a thing called the SIA, the Security Industry Authority, and they were trying to get rid of all the cowboys and the thugs and the bullies and make it a professional industry. So the police were coming down on us hard. You know, whether you were in the right or in the wrong, they were coming down on us hard. And I kept getting in trouble. You know, every weekend I seemed to be getting in trouble with the police, even though I'm not a bully and I'm not a thug. I was very diplomatic and always prided myself on being professional and talking my way out of things. But it was just a bizarre time where I was always in trouble. And it got to a point for me, it got to a tipping point where I was looking at going to jail and I panicked. So I decided that I was going to go back in the Marines. You know, I was going to re-enlist because I'd only been a civilian for 12 months. There was no need to go through all the training again. You know, every 12 months we would do a shooting test, a fitness test. We would do what we call a weapons handling test, and then maybe do a nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare test where you just put a mask on, they put CS gas in a chamber, that kind of stuff. So once I did that, they brought me back in. Once I passed the shooting test, fitness test, showed that I was still able and capable, I had my uniform back on in 2007. And then I joined a unit who were next on the rotation to go out to Afghanistan. This time was something called Operation Herrick. Now, I was deploying Operation Herrick 7. So we'd obviously been in Afghanistan for a couple of years at this point. Did the pre-deployment training again. And I kind of knew just from the volume and the tempo and the pace of the training that it wasn't going to be the same as Iraq. It was going to be different.
More intense?
Yes, very much. And on September 7th, 2007, I flew out. We flew out to initially Kandahar Airfield, then to Camp Bastion. We spent a couple of days in Camp Bastion acclimatizing and prepping all our kit and equipment. And on about the 11th or 12th, we flew out to Helmand, to a place called Forward Operating Base Robinson, where we were going to spend the next 6 months doing our job. Now, that job was, I mean, I'm going to guess it was the same as everybody that had been there before us. So there were these FOBs, these forward operating bases scattered all over Helmand, and you have an area of responsibility, what your unit, your FOB, the allied forces you have with you are responsible for. And you go out and you patrol that area and you protect that area. You protect the civilians there. You dominate the ground, take the fight to the enemy, try and bring stability to the area, and basically just do what the chain of command tell you. We spent 3 months out there. We came into contact heavily with the enemy numerous times. Lots of firefights, all hours of the day, whether you're on patrol or you're just in your FOB doing whatever you're doing. Sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning, you're just jumping out of your bed, running down and getting in a firefight. But it was very, very different to Iraq.
Your first time.
Right. Now, on Christmas Eve, we were given another patrol to go on. We've been locked up in the camp for about 10 days because we had a lack of manpower, which meant we couldn't defend our position and proactively mount foot patrols. So the lads were going a bit stir crazy, and the hierarchy knew that. So as soon as we got some more bodies in to booster our manpower, they sent us out on a foot patrol to stretch our legs and show the enemy that we were still out there taking the fight to them and dominating the ground. Now, the idea of this patrol was very, very simple. Up to this point, you would get told, right, there's an enemy location here. Go and disrupt it. You're out for 6 hours. You go 3-4 miles. There's a weapons cache there. Go destroy it. Again, out for a couple of hours. You go for a couple of miles. All we had to do on this patrol was leave the rear entrance of our camp in 2 sections with 8 men in each section. One was going to go north. One was going to go south. We got told to patrol the immediate perimeter of the camp and not push any more than 300 meters. And then meet this time at the front entrance of the camp, so the opposite side, and then secure a location, close things down, and finish up for the day. And now with it being Christmas Day, the next day, we were going to get everyone 2 or 3 days R&R. We could open our mail and have a bit of a Christmas dinner and all that kind of stuff. So compared to what we've been doing, this was very basic, very low level stuff. So no cause for concern. The intelligence that we had gave us no cause for concern, and everyone was, geared up and ready to get out there. So the time came and we left. I was second in command of the section that went north. The other guys went south. And we went out and we patrolled. And we did all the things that we'd done in the other patrols to that point. We met with the villagers. We provided them with some food and some water, some security. Went out and gathered intelligence, passed back any suspicious signs of enemy activity to the hierarchy, that kind of stuff. And about 5 hours into it, both sections now found themselves at the front entrance of camp, ready to finish up the patrol for the day and go back in. Now, the section that I was in were on a high piece of ground called the North Fort. Slightly beneath that was the fob that we were working out of. And then down beneath that was the other section of 8 men that we left with earlier in the day. So because we're on a high feature, tactically we're in a very advantageous position because we can see everything and it's easier to fight going down a hill than it is up. So our job was to give them what we call overwatch, so protection. So they can get back into camp, they get behind the perimeter wall, they'll be safe, they'll then return the favor, they'll protect us, we'll come off the high feature, back in the camp, job done. Easy, standard operating procedures, done it a million times. So we're up on the high feature and the section commander takes his half of the section and he starts giving them fire positions. I take my half of the section and about 4 meters in front of me, there was a little bowl in the ground. Now, in my mind, I thought, okay, if we get in that bowl, we get on our bellies, we're going to be pretty well protected. There's no buildings to get behind, no trees, no rocks, nothing, because we're on this ridgeline. So if we get in here, get down on our stomachs, no one's going to see us and they're not going to be able to shoot at us. Looking back on it, it was pretty stupid. But, I'm 24 years old, still a little bit wet behind the ears, thinking I'm doing a good job. So we jump in. All these guys start taking their fire positions. I stand back. I observe for a little bit. I've got a couple of checks that I've got to do, make sure everyone's safe and, that we're still well defended in case there's an enemy attack. And when they turn around and give me the thumbs up, I start to walk over towards a position that I selected for myself. Now, when I got there, I went to get down to my stomach, and as I put my right knee on the floor, that was the moment that I knelt on and detonated an improvised explosive device.
And now you have a big problem.
Now I have a very big problem. I don't know that at the time because the terrain in Afghanistan, right? Very sandy, very dusty.
You got blown up though, right?
Right. So yeah. I kneel on the device and this device explodes. But because of the terrain, the dust and the sand, this huge dust cloud is created, right? So you can't see anything. Now, there was no pain. There was no obvious signs of what I had done, and I had no idea. So my gut instinct was that we were under attack, right? I thought someone had maybe fired a rocket or a mortar on our position. It had exploded nearby. That's why the dust cloud was created. That's what the explosion was. So in my mind, I'm thinking, right, We're in a fight now. We need to find out where the enemy is, neutralize the threat, and get everyone out before someone gets hurt. Now, where I was, the position that I'd selected for myself, I knew that about 600 meters behind me, down beneath us, where the other section of men were, there was a small rectangular forestry block. Everything else around the area was just flat mud fields. So I can't see anything. My adrenaline spiked, my fight or flight's kicked in. I can hear everyone around me shouting. It's chaotic.
So you're conscious
the whole time, right? But all I'm thinking is turn around, turn around, turn around. Identify where the enemy is and start shooting. When you start shooting, everyone will see you shooting. They'll start shooting. Then we've got a big HMG machine gun in camp. Hopefully they'll see where we're shooting and they'll mow the forest down and take out the enemy. So in my mind, I start saying, turn around, Mark, turn around, turn around. Crawl over there, find the forest and start shooting. And I still can't see anything because of this dust cloud, right? This is seconds. You're reacting very quick. And after about 5 times of saying it to myself, turn around, turn around, turn around, I realized that I wasn't moving. Even though I couldn't see anything, you just knew, and I couldn't figure out why. So I just waited. I thought I'll wait till this dust cloud settles. I'll have a look around, assess the situation, figure out what's going on, and then make some decisions. So we got to about chest height, and I look around, and I'm panicking at this point, hoping that none of my friends had been hurt or killed. Couldn't see any of them. They'd all been blasted out of the area. So I carry on waiting. And then the dust cloud gets about 6 inches from the floor, eventually hits the floor, and it disappears. And as it disappeared, I looked down to where my legs should have been. And they have both just been completely ripped off from the knees down. Now,
no pain?
No pain. And this is what I was just about to say, like how surreal the situation is, right? Because your brain doesn't know what it's looking at, right? So you sat there looking at where your legs should be. There's no pain, and you're looking at this like, can I swear on this podcast?
Oh, fuck yeah.
So I'm looking like, what the fuck am I looking at? This doesn't make any sense to me, right? And there's no pain, so it makes even less sense. Now, I probably stared for like 2 or 3 seconds and then instantly remembered about the rest of my team. So I snapped out of it really quickly and I started looking around to see if I could see anybody. Now, as I looked over my right shoulder, I saw the section commander. He was a guy that I went through training with, Corporal Sean Helsby. I'd known him for a long time, and he was just in shock. Like the look on his face, he had no color in his face. He was just clearly in shock at what he was looking at. Which in this really, he was fine. He just come like back over the brow of the hill where I guess he'd been blasted out. Yeah, and I just looked at him, and then I thought about what I just looked at, and I kind of thought, why is he looking at me like that? And you start piecing it all together like shit. Now I still didn't fully believe. It's like being drunk. You look around and nothing really matters, and you don't know what's happening. And so I went to look back at my legs, and as I got to like the 3 o'clock position, I'm scanning the ground with my eyes, and I got to about the 3 o'clock position, and I saw my arm just like lying there in the sand. It was still attached from my bicep to my wrist. All my flesh was just ripped open. All the bone was shattered. My hand was still intact. I think my thumb had been blown off. And I picked this hand up and I kind of held it in front of my face. And all like where my
movies.
Right. And where all my elbow and everything should be, it was like a bag of water, like a plastic bag. It just flopped. And I looked at this hand, and then all of the realization hit me at once. The legs, the look at Sean's face, the hand that I was holding. Then I was like, we're not under attack. I am the dickhead that has stood on the IED. And I just dropped it and just screamed like this huge, like just frustration. Like I'm the idiot. Because you always talk about this. Everyone's like, we'll go toe to toe with anybody. Fists, knives, guns. But there's nothing you can do about an IED. And I even had the mindset that you have to be pretty stupid to detonate an IED, because the ground is so hard that you'd think you'd see it very easily where it's been dug in. But I think personally, where we were in this little bow, where it had rained and everything over the days that we were locked up, you know, it smoothed the surface out and you couldn't really see anything. But it very quickly became apparent that I had stood on this IED. And I knew from the way we're trained, you know, we're trained, the rest of the team are trained not to come running in to help me, because you don't know how many other devices are around and you risk killing yourself or the casualty. Now, this little bowl that I was in, after reading the report, was 12 feet deep by 15 feet around. So my evacuation was going to be very, very difficult. And one part of me thought, this is it. You're going to die. But the other part of me thought, nope, you're going to be fine, because these men that you're with are so professional and good at their job that they won't let that happen. And so there was nothing I could do. I just lay in this huge crater and I let the machine kick in. And what I mean by that is, you know, everyone, we train for this. You know,
yeah.
Right. So one guy's on the radio calling in a 9-liner to the HQ to get a helicopter flown out to me. There's another guy in his belly with a bayonet poking the floor, looking for other devices, marking a safe route for when the medic gets to me. There's another guy coordinating the rest of the guys to get into an all-round defense in case there's a small arms follow-up attack. And they all just kicked in and did their jobs. And then, you know, because we were so close to the camp, the medic got to me really quickly. He had been scrambled out of the camp. He came and got to me. He put tourniquets on my legs, put one on my arm. He asked me to do up the tourniquet on my arm. It's part of their training to keep you conscious and keep you fighting. They get you involved and ask you to do something. And when he had got me to a position where he thought I was stable, he pulled out this stretcher, like a tablecloth with handles on it because of this crater we're in. And he hooked his arms into my armpits and he dragged me over to the stretcher. Now, I hadn't felt any pain to this point, right? But when he dragged me, it felt like what I imagine it feels like if you put a screwdriver under your kneecap and then just started ratcheting down on someone's kneecap. And so, you know, I shout at this medic. I'm like, put me down. And I look into the floor, you know, to my right leg where the pain was coming from. And there was like a thin red piece of rope snaking in the ground, covered in sand and dirt and blood and claret. And I just eyeballed it through the ground, and it went into a black boot, you know, the boot I was wearing. Yeah. And so I picked it up. I don't know why. I looked in it, and my foot was in there. You know, all from my knees down, my shins were just gone.
Holy fuck, bro.
Right. So this like tendon or a nerve or whatever it was, where he had pulled me, the weight of the foot and the boot had stretched this nerve or something and caused the pain. So he then had to take my foot and my boot and cradle it on my stomach. He got somehow, now I had my eyes closed for 99% of the time, right? Thinking there's no way this guy's going to be able to evacuate me because we're on a high feature, we're in a crater, we've got to get down to the road. But he got me down somehow. And he threw me in the back of a vehicle, and the vehicle starts driving. Now, these are not tarmac roads. These are sandy dirt tracks with massive pots. So you're just getting thrown around like shit all in the back, right? And we start climbing up an incline to go into the front entrance of the camp and then to the HLS where the helicopter was coming to get me. So you had to drive quite aggressively on certain parts because it's sandy and dusty and it's loose, right? So the guy's driving and he's hitting hard left and he's hitting hard right and he's accelerating where he needs to get up this incline. And they got to a point where he nailed the accelerator and then this medic fell out the back. Now I'm off my nut on morphine at this point, right? So nothing's hurting and everything's funny. Everything just feels like a dream. And so, right, so I go at the back after this guy, right? I go to fall out the back after him. Now, as the bottom of my back, so like my tailbone.
So what are you trying to do? Save him in your mind?
No, it's just because I can't anchor myself down. I've got no legs.
So
I can't grab anything.
Got it.
So I'm just tumbling out. We're going up this hill. He falls out because it's so
Got it.
rough. I fall out. But as I'm falling out, the driver swings round and he reaches out and he grabs whatever he can grab to hold me in. He grabbed my femur bone that was poking out of my right leg. And he kind of held me half in, half out this vehicle. And
fuck me.
Right. Now he left the medic because that other section, there were 8 heavily armed men at the bottom of this hill that we'd left with earlier, the ones that we were providing protection for. So he knew he was okay. He made the right choice. He left him, drove me to the helicopter landing site. And the last thing I can remember is this helicopter landing, the sandstorm that gets created from the propeller blades, the heat of the exhaust, and then the mechanical sound of the tailgate dropping. And then I blacked out, which is when I later found out they told me I died. There you go. That was my Christmas Eve in 2007.
So how do you come back from all of this?
So I don't remember what happened on the helicopter, but I do know because I've met the team over the years.
So not the medical side, I'm asking. The mental, personal development side, right? The medical side is what it is, right? Like how do you as a human being not just fucking sit at home on your couch, watch TV all day and sulk?
It's a process. Right. So here's how I see it, right? And I know I was the UK's first triple amputee from Afghanistan. I think from the First World War, combat related. So there was nobody. When I went to rehab, it was very, very lonely in the beginning. Right? There was nobody with my level of injury. There was no one to mentor me or anything like that. But I knew from the few people that I had met that there's only 2 ways that you go when you wake up in a hospital after something like this. You go down and you're angry and you hate everybody. And I don't mean this disrespectfully, but you adopt the victim mentality. Why did this happen to me? I hate the world. You start drinking, maybe harder thing, whatever it is. Or you go the other way and you're pretty matter of fact about it and go, okay, this is shit, but these are the facts. Both legs above the knee, right arm above the elbow. No internal injuries, no facial injuries, no traumatic brain injuries. You know, my junk's all in order and it still works because I've had 2 other kids ever since, the old-fashioned way. So you start thinking, not what's good about my situation, but what can I be grateful for? Now, in the beginning, in fact, I think there was a lot of luck involved in it. And what I mean by that is when I woke up, I was like, okay, this is shit. I'm alive. There's nothing I can do about it. And I put a massive amount of it down to the support I had around me that helped me get me through those early days. Family, friends, doctors, nurses, the Royal Marines, the medical system, all of that. You know, there was a lot of attention on me because I was a triple amputee. They hadn't seen that before. And I was what they call high dependency. So I never really needed anything. Everything was just, I was like a pampered little princess in the beginning. Everything was just laid on thick and I didn't need anything. My family did. We were really well looked after. And so I started to come out of, intensive care. They started to wean me off the medication. I started to come back into the real world and actually understand what it is I'm dealing with. And it wasn't easy. Look, if you can see the scar on my left hand, I nearly lost my hand as well. I had a huge hole. I could only use 2 fingers for the first 5 weeks of my recovery. And it sucked. All I could do was lie in bed and think about things and be in pain. And I think I had 3 further surgeries to clean out all the debris and the sand and dirt from my wounds. But you have a lot of time to think. Now, 3.5 weeks into it, a guy came in my room, a doctor, 33 years, he'd been amputating people's limbs. And he literally came in and said, "I'm sorry, Mark, but you're never going to walk again. And I've never met anybody who's got 1 leg missing above the knee that has any success with prosthetics." And then he turned around and left. Right? Now, to that point, we'd all been very positive. In fact, I was so positive that a couple of years later, when I met some of my medical team, they told me that they thought I was suffering from something called post-traumatic euphoria, which means that, you know, you face trauma, you say, I'm going to climb Mount Everest, I want to go skydiving, and then you realize the limitations of your injuries and you crash. But I never really crashed. But after that guy left, you know, I'm not going to say I crashed. It's a natural response. I went down and went to a dark place and wanted to kill myself.
So you did go dark for a little bit.
Oh, hell yeah. For like 5 days, I wanted to kill myself. And I think it was probably on the 4th day that I actually had a little chuckle to myself and thought, I can't even kill myself because I can't cut my wrists. I've only got one fucking hand. And I was like, I'm useless. I'm going to have to ask somebody to help me do this.
I don't mean to laugh, man, but holy shit, I can't even kill myself.
That's what I did. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you can't even do this now. You know, and I had a little laugh about it. But then I got a visit from a guy who was actually blown up in Iraq, a British Army guy. Lost both his legs above the knee to a suicide bomber. And he had 2 prosthetic legs above the knee. And he told me that actually you can walk. You know, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to go to fucking hell and back. And I also lost my dominant right arm as well, so it's going to be a little bit trickier for me. But he said if you put the effort in, you can claw your independence back. And so that brought me out of that funk. You know, there was another time when probably about, I don't know the timeline exactly, but the first time I left hospital, I only spent 6 weeks in hospital. So 3.5 weeks into it, this doctor tells me I never walk. I see Mick, the guy with the prosthetics, he tells me I can. And there was another point when I left the hospital for the first time to stay outside of a clinical environment. And it was the first time I saw myself in a full-length mirror. And I cried all night. You know, I used to be 6'2". I used to weigh 16 stone, which I think is maybe 200 pounds, maybe a bit more of just muscle from jacking weights and stuff. And now I'm like 9 stone 1. I think it's like 63 pounds and 4'3". So I just cried the entire night because my identity, what I talked about earlier, growing up being the big, strong, muscular superhero who's the gentleman, that was my identity when I was a Marine. Now I'd lost it all.
And you can't get it back. There's no way to get it back.
Well, there kind of is, because that's kind of where life is at now. But back then, I'm just like, I'm a 24-year-old, excuse my language, but cripple. And this is what I've got to live with until I'm 100 years old, you know? And it was very, very difficult to try and accept that. But when you've got no choice, you've got to kind of put your big boy pants on and go, I have to accept it, or I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life. And I'm going to be horrible, and I'm going to be angry and bitter, and I'm going to waste the good things that I've got left. You know, and I had no idea what the future held because I'd never been disabled before. I didn't know anybody that was disabled. I didn't know what the quality of life was like, but I knew I had a great team around me, unreal support. And from what I had achieved at a young age, going through Royal Marines training and that kind of stuff, I knew I had the mindset to overcome it. And so we just dived into rehab and just smashed it.
So you said a second ago, this is where you are now, right?
Right.
What? Explain that. What does that mean? What does that mean? This is where you are now.
You reinvent yourself. You know, I know there's a couple of American guys who are in a similar situation to me, and they call themselves recalibrated warriors. Okay, so it's almost like Mark Ormrod 2.0. All right, you're not 6'2" anymore, right? You're not 200 pounds. You know, you're not that guy that you were, but you have not, I was going to say the same mindset. You have a stronger mindset. And actually, you're better than what you were before because you've got to be a lot more resourceful now. You've got to dig a lot deeper and find parts of you that you probably wouldn't have had to find before had you not been put in this situation. And you become better mentally. You become stronger physically. And you may not look it. You know what I mean? You may not, you know, I can't bench press what I could bench press before, but it takes between 300 and 500% more energy to walk around with above knee prosthetics on than it does for someone with legs. So it's almost, if you got out of bed in the morning, right, and you jogged on the spot pretty fast and then you went to the bathroom and brushed your teeth jogging on the spot, and then you jogged to your car and you're eating your breakfast. And, you know, when I give presentations, I'm on stage for an hour. I say to people, if this was you jogging on the spot for an hour, this is what it takes me to stand on the spot. The energy expenditure is horrendous. You know, so physically you're like an athlete. I have to live like an athlete, you know, holistically, diet, rest, recovery, training, everything I do to be able to get on
just
in my
to
life.
be able to deal with your life. Right.
And so this is what I mean by you are that guy again. It's almost like, I know it's a bit corny, but like one of these superhero movies, you know, where you got, you know, it's the guy in the Justice League, Cyborg. You know what I mean? He's like, he gets, or RoboCop, the new one. He gets blown up, loses his limbs, and they give him some tech, and he reinvents himself. And you know, it's a shit journey, a rough journey to get there. But eventually, you get to that point of the story where you're like, I'm a lot stronger, and I've got a lot stronger mindset than I ever would have had I not gone through this. You know, so it's a crazy journey.
So, man, I'd like to ask 2 questions as we close. One, you're in the UK, you know?
Yeah.
I'm in America. I'm not, you know, why would you take the time, like when my podcast reaches out, when my team reaches out, why say yes, right? Like what makes you say yes to coming on not Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss's podcast? Because that's what this is. This isn't like some massive podcast in the US where it's like, it's going to, you know, make you famous.
It's, for me personally, that's not what it's about. So over the years, through social media and email and stuff like that, because I openly share my story, you know, videos, social media, and all that kind of stuff, I've had hundreds of messages and it's from the strangest thing, like, you know, I've had a leg removed as well, to I lost a child, from one end of the spectrum to the other, and they say things like, I watch what you do, and it gives me hope, and it motivates me, and you know, I realize that some people have it a lot worse than I do, and I've seen your story, and it's reinvigorated me, you know. And when people do that, strangers, you know, you say, why did I come on here? Because now there's going to be a whole new bunch of strangers that I'll probably never meet, but your audience that maybe and hopefully have that same kind of reaction. And maybe someone's feeling shit right now, and it puts it in perspective for them. And they think, well, shit, I've got both my legs, I've got my arm, I can walk, run, jump, pull up, swim, whatever it is, and it's easy for me, you know, compared to this guy who's got to put prosthetics on every day and figure stuff, like still now, figure stuff out every day. So that's why it's not about going on Joe Rogan and getting loads and loads of hits. It's about reaching people, you know, and taking the gratitude that I have for the journey that I've been on and spreading that and paying that forward.
Hell yeah. Lastly, I believe everyone has a unique power in the world, something that makes them amazing, you know. Again, doesn't make them money or famous or anything like that, but you know, something that makes them like that gift that you give to the world. What's your power?
Mindset. It's mindset. You know, I think we touched on it briefly at the beginning when we were talking about the news and the media, but I think for some reason, most people, their default mindset is negativity. When anything bad happens in their life, we just go instantly to the negative. Whereas I've learned over the years to stop and take a breath, look at the situation and go, okay, it sucks, but what's good about it? What can I take? You know, I got fired from my job. All right, that sucks. What's good about it? I hated that job anyway. Now I can go and do what I really want to do. You know, my wife left me. All right, that sucks. What's good about it? Well, she treated me like shit, and now I've got Tinder, so I'll go swiping left and right for hours. I don't know, whatever it is. You know, it's a mindset thing, man, and you just got to be like, you just got to change your mindset, you know, and develop your own unique way of doing things.
I have a coach that I work with, you know, and he, whenever something good or skillful happens, he makes me find the drawbacks to it. And whenever anything bad happens, he makes me find the benefits, right? He's like, so, you know, we find the drawbacks of the good because there has to be, right?
Yep.
Everything's got a cost. And then we find the benefits of the shit that you just don't want to happen in your life. So what's the fucking benefit of this? So
Right.
and that helps me with my mindset. All right, man. Well, tell everyone where they can reach you if they want to reach out, where's the best way to do it, and where, like, all your social media and all of that.
Yeah, I'm on all the regular channels. My handle across the board on all of them is @MarkOrmrod. I'm on there daily, on every platform pretty much. And then there's the website, markormrod.com.
All right.
I'm pretty easy to find.
Simple. Guys, as always, Mark has his unique power, and I have my own unique power. Don't go out in the world and try to be Mark, and don't go out in the world and try to be me. You all go out there and you find your power.
Absolutely.